Hello friends, welcome back to the Create Your Shape podcast. I'm Jenny, or Jenny the Nutritionist, and I help ladies who lift weights look like they lift weights by building muscle and decreasing body fat, but also understanding the science and the strategy behind it with a lot of education like I do throughout this whole podcast, but especially in my program Create Your Shape, where we change your body composition, you learn and understand the science and strategy behind nutrition, and then we create your routine that just runs on autopilot so it can just be who you are and how you operate for the long term. Now, this month's Q&A, I'm going to bring in some questions that I got from my Create Your Shape ladies. So a quick overview. Shoulder caps are all the rage right now, and for a good reason, so we'll cover that. Someone asked about increasing their protein during a deficit phase. And then last but not least, they want to know how to keep the girls perky without developing too much chest muscle. So these are the questions I'm going to be going over. Let's get into it. Okay, the first question. What is the best approach to maximize shoulder cap development? Is it better to emphasize heavier lateral raises or increase shoulder pressing volume? Great question. So shoulder caps are all the rage right now for a good reason, because they really allow you to build muscle and look like you lift weights, but in a very feminine way. Now, creating a shoulder cap would include growing muscle and size in all three parts of the shoulder. So your shoulder has three parts: the front part, or your anterior delt. It has the side part, or your lateral delt, and then it has the back part, or your rear delt. So you can see how all of those would contribute to that round shoulder cap. Now, examples of exercise that would hit each of these: the front or anterior delt would be anything that is pressing, like a shoulder press. Then the lateral delt, the side delt, would be lateral raises. And then the rear delt would be like a reverse fly. So I suggest, if you had to prioritize one for the shoulder cap, I would do the lateral raises, or anything that focuses on that lateral delt, the side part, because from the front in the back, that is where you will see that kind of curve in the shoulder. It doesn't mean that the other ones aren't as important, but I do find that this is the primary one. Now, I think this could be argued some, but that would be my take on it. So then a close second place would be your anterior delt or the front delt. So that would be a pressing movement. And then third, but not forgotten by any means, would be rear delt movements like the reverse fly. So that is how I would prioritize movements for shoulder cap development. Okay, the next question. Given my steady fat loss, should I increase protein intake slightly to maintain lean muscle? So just to kind of set the stage, in my program, during a deficit, you're generally going to want at body weight or more of protein to help maintain muscle mass during the calorie deficit. So for this client specifically, she was already at about 1.3 times body weight, which is adequate for muscle repair. And in addition to that, I think that rate of loss would want to be determined. And so for her, we were seeing about a half a pound per week, which is fine. I generally encourage higher to get it done faster, get in and out, about a pound or so per week. And so given that the rate of loss is relatively slow, you're also setting yourself up to decrease less muscle mass. So there's not really a huge reason to increase protein beyond what it is. And there, if we were increasing protein, we'd also be increasing calories, which might have impact on how fast we're decreasing body fat. And since decreasing body fat is the main goal and she's already set up to preserve her muscle mass, I would say no, keep protein where it is, which is already 1.3 times body weight. Now, if I do increase protein during a calorie deficit, it is either because, one, that their protein isn't at or beyond body weight, but for my ladies, they all work up to that prior in the primer phase. But the other reason why I might increase is if you're experiencing hunger, and if we're decreasing calories, or if you're decreasing body fat too fast, then we just might bring up overall intake through a variety of macros. But if you're not decreasing body fat too fast and that you're still getting hungry, one, I'd probably do a nutrition audit to see, are we choosing optimal foods that are going to keep you satiated? But there's also room to then increase protein to keep you more satiated. However, protein is very favorable during a calorie deficit phase because you are also going to burn the most of that compared to the other macros, burn the most of that just to be able to digest it. Like protein takes a lot of work for your body to digest. So it is the most favorable one to increase during the calorie deficit phase if needed. So that is when I would increase it. But specifically for this person, I gave you the reasons why I wouldn't increase protein. All right. The last question, lifting the bust for upper chest work. How can I target my upper chest for a perkier look without developing an over manly appearance? So I understand what she means and the concern there, but I would say two things. The first is when you're doing anterior pressing, so anterior delt or front delt pressing, like shoulder pressing, you are also going to be hitting your chest as well, just because of the positioning. So this is a lot of times why they call it push days, where you do shoulders in chest, especially for men. Females typically don't do that because of this reason. So what I suggest doing is when you're including your anterior presses, you're going to get your chest through that anyway, so you may just not do a specific chest exercise every single training cycle. I wouldn't remove it completely in that you never do it. It just may not be every single cycle that you include it. Another thing to consider too is that if you are doing chest movements, you are going to be able to notice unwanted gains and realize them and slow down or remove them or take a break from them before that even happens. So building muscle is very slow. So it is not like you're going to do even a couple weeks of training and be like, oh my gosh, I've gone too far. That won't happen. You'll be able to identify it beforehand. But in order to set yourself up for this look where you still want to keep the girl's perky but not overly developed chest muscles, this is a great way to do it. Use your anterior pressing or your shoulder pressing. That will also get the chest muscles without taxing them too much as a secondary muscle group, so you're still getting the benefit there. So that is my suggestion for upper chest work for this specific scenario. All right, I hope you enjoyed this Q&A. You can always send me your questions in at Jenny the Nutritionist on Instagram, and I'll see you next week on the Create Your Shape podcast.